Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating architecture of a digital ministry text from the channel Jesus Affirmations. We're going to break down exactly how it delivers such a deeply emotional message of hope. Because, what we're looking at here isn't just your run-of-the-mill message of encouragement, it's actually a meticulously crafted piece of rhetorical architecture. It's specifically designed to guide a listener from a state of total despair right into a state of absolute guaranteed victory. So, we're going to unpack exactly how this text achieves its powerful psychological and emotional impact by looking at its structure, its repetition, and its highly authoritative narrative voice.
Okay, talk about jumping right in. The source doesn't give us a soft introduction or a gentle greeting, it just drops us straight into absolute certainty. No one can stop what is coming next. By framing the message this way right out of the gate, the text demands your immediate attention and sets this tone of unstoppable momentum. It's basically telling the listener, hey, whatever you're about to hear, it isn't up for debate, it's an absolute inevitability.
And this text builds a really precise roadmap from that past pain to future victory. We've got 5 key structural movements we're looking at today. First, the end of the dark season. Second, exposing the enemy's tactics. Third, divine presence in pain. Fourth, reclaiming your true identity. And finally, the unstoppable final decree.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the end of the dark season and the shift from silence to declaration. You see, before this narrative can even offer a solution, it absolutely has to validate the listener's deep past suffering. And it relies on a really powerful chronological arc to pull this off. The listener's past is categorized entirely as this time of waiting, silence, and testing. But the present moment, like literally right now, the exact second the listener is consuming this media, is framed as the shift. It's the hinge that their entire life turns on. Because of that, the future is no longer this huge source of anxiety. Instead, it's a guaranteed new season of blessing. This structure gives the audience a profound, tangible sense of forward motion.
Now, to make that past feel genuinely authentic, the text enumerates some very specific, highly relatable pains to build empathy. It doesn't just vaguely say, hey, I know you've been sad. It uses incredibly evocative language, the weight of lies, the sting of betrayal. It even talks about the silence of unanswered nights, which just perfectly captures that modern feeling of extreme isolation and anxiety. By naming these specific symptoms, the text acts almost like a mirror, reflecting the viewer's internal struggles right back at them. And that establishes an intense, immediate bond of trust with the narrator.
Moving right along to part 2, exposing the enemy's tactics and the architecture of spiritual warfare.
So, every compelling narrative needs an adversary, right? Well, here, the text builds a structured one-to-one comparison between the attacks meant to cause despair and the divine interventions that neutralize them. For literally every tactic used, like whispering lies or isolating the listener through betrayal, there's a specific divine countermeasure. If hidden snares are used, the divine response exposes them with light. If heavy oppression is applied, the divine response lifts the shame. It's essentially visualizing this perfect system of defense, proving to the listener that no matter what kind of trauma they faced, there is a specialized remedy already in place.
And by personifying these struggles as the enemy, the text actually does something incredibly comforting for the listener. It externalizes the blame. By defining this active force that's out there setting traps of deception, the text is telling the listener that their feelings of unworthiness, their failures, their fears, they aren't actually their own fault. They're the result of external sabotage. And let's be honest, defeating an external enemy is conceptually way easier to grasp and so much more satisfying than constantly fighting your own internal psychology.
Which brings us to part 3, divine presence in pain, recontextualizing the waiting period. Okay, so one of the absolute greatest sources of pain described in the source material is the feeling of being abandoned during hard times. But the text tackles this head-on by engaging in some brilliant psychological reframing. It uses this repetitive rhetorical device to contrast the listener's perceived reality with divine truth. So humanly, you might think, you thought you were alone in the dark. But then the text reveals this hidden superior reality. I was the shield keeping you from being consumed. This device retroactively inserts a guardian into the listener's most traumatic memories, which completely soothes the sting of those past events.
In this specific reframing, it transforms the pain of divine silence into purposeful alignment. As human beings, we literally hate meaningless suffering. So the text resolves this existential dread by ensuring that the waiting was actually preparing. Suddenly, all those years of hardship, delay, and frustration, they aren't seen as a punishment or some cosmic accident anymore. They're totally recast as an essential, custom-designed training ground. The pain wasn't pointless at all. It was entirely purposeful.
Let's move into part 4, reclaiming your true identity and the power of divine labels. So once the past has been recontextualized and the enemy is defeated, the text has to rebuild self-esteem. And it intentionally strips all those old damaging labels away to make room for brand new ones. It uses these rapid-fire affirmations to basically stamp a new unconditional identity onto the listener. Chosen, beloved, redeemed, free, victorious. And the kicker is, the text doesn't present these as things you have to earn. They're absolute facts declared by a higher authority. It is an incredibly efficient way to just immediately rebuild psychological resilience.
And this authority is massively amplified by the intimacy of the first-person perspective. The whole text isn't some dry lecture about theology. It actually reads like a deeply personal letter. When the narrator says, "I am the final word in your story," it's effectively telling the listener that no critic, no betrayer, not even their own self-doubt gets a vote anymore. The supreme authority has spoken, and the verdict is entirely positive.
And finally, we arrive at part 5, the unstoppable final decree, sealing the promise.
This is where we shift from emotional comfort into unbreakable, absolute declarations. The text ensures this new reality is a guaranteed fact, and that word decree is absolutely crucial here. A decree isn't a wish, it's not a suggestion, it is a legally binding royal command. By stating that this decree has been spoken in a realm way above humanity, the text is assuring the listener that earthly circumstances, no matter how dire they might seem right now, simply do not have the jurisdiction to cancel the blessings that are coming.
The rhetorical power here is really built through this rhythmic repetition, hammering home that absolutely no opposition can undo this blessing. Unshakable, unstoppable, unbreakable, unmovable. It is literally a verbal drumbeat, and it's designed to completely bypass logical anxiety and speak directly to your emotional core, creating this profound sense of total security and safety.
And it doesn't just leave things in the abstract either. This final sequence paints a vivid, tangible picture of exactly how this unstoppable decree is going to practically unfold in the listener's everyday life. Step 1, chains snapping and barriers crumbling. That represents the literal removal of immediate obstacles. Step 2 promises the actual restoration of practical things like hidden opportunities and relationships. And finally, Step 3 promises a sudden, all-encompassing victory that just completely collapses that old era of hardship. The listener is left holding a precise blueprint of the exact miracles they are supposed to expect.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound question to think about. How exactly do these definitive divine affirmations build psychological resilience for modern digital audiences? Because let's face it, in a digital world that is often incredibly chaotic, totally unpredictable, and highly critical, a text that speaks directly to the individual with 100% unconditional approval and guaranteed future success is a deeply powerful psychological tool. By understanding the architecture of these decrees, from validating past pain to rewriting identity to sealing the future, we can see exactly why these digital affirmations resonate so intensely with millions of focused learners and seekers around the world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the structures behind the information that shapes our world.